I didn't think I was going to be happy Macron won, but here we are. I am happy. It truly was the lesser of two evils. Not that the choices were that different, to be honest. Oh, they're definitely different. I kind of resent the narrative that Macron or Le Pen are just as bad. Like a neoliberal is better than a proto-fascist. Like people will suffer less under Macron than they would have suffered under Marine Le Pen, especially with some of the stuff that she had in store for France. France does allow dual citizenship, right? Yes, the US and France allow dual citizenship between each other. Hey, Skits, how are you doing? I understand and respect your opinion. I have a personal grudge with Macron. And I totally understand it. I'm not a fan of Macron, except for his foreign policy. I think his foreign policy is really good, but I think his local policy is really bad. He's made a lot of mistakes. He's hurt a lot of people. I'm not going to deny that, but he still hurts less people than Le Pen. And especially, like, I don't know if everyone realizes. Oh yeah, let's get into the election analysis. I don't know if you realize, Marine Le Pen explicitly said that when she said that she wanted to do the proportionnel for the legislative elections, that she wanted to do the proportional elections, her plan was to do 2/3 of the seat proportionally, and then 1/3 of the seats winner takes all. Literally 33% of the seats at the National Assembly would have gone to the party that had the biggest lead in the popular vote. To me, that's such an obvious like play for total power over the country, because imagine the Rassemblement National, they get like a good showing, you know, Zemmour backs them, etc., etc. They get like 33%. Then they get another 33% because they got ahead of La République En Marche. So now they have a 66% majority in the legislative and the presidency. Like that's like authoritarian fascist regime type action. It's fucking scary. She's really managed. She's managed very, very well to reform her image and to make herself look more moderate. But when you look at some of the details of what she had in store, it's scary, man. It's the other way around for me. I don't mind his internal politics. I despise his foreign policies. Interesting. I would be curious to hear more about why you have that perspective. Because, like, for me, I'm rather left-leaning, okay? So when Macron is, like, liberalizing the economy, deregulating things, I tend to see the damage that will do to the French people, to the French society. But when Macron is for, like, a stronger Europe, a more federal Europe, when he says that French sovereignty and European sovereignty is the same thing, that they have, that we are working towards the same goals in Europe, I like that. And especially with Ukraine, for example, like Mélenchon wants to leave NATO. I don't think that's if not for the war in Ukraine, I would have been okay with Mélenchon wanting to leave NATO. With the war in Ukraine happening, I absolutely don't. I think he's fucking insane. I'm not too opposed to authoritarian rule. It really depends on the person in charge, though. I prefer more democratic solutions. Yeah, no, like that's exactly why authoritarianism doesn't work. Like, of course, an enlightened dictatorship will always be better. But like that's not saying you're dumb, but that's like a bad take. Yeah, I'm okay with an authoritarian if he agrees with my perspective. Like, sure, Neyman just hates freedom. That's why he hates Macron's liberalism. True. Frexit, Postchamp, yeah. France is the only nation which left NATO already once, right? Yeah. Well, technically what De Gaulle did is De Gaulle left NATO's command and control, which is as close as you can get to leaving NATO without actually leaving it. Some other examples, even now that Sarkozy has rejoined NATO command and control, the French nuclear power is not linked to NATO response. For example, France retains total sovereignty over its nuclear power. I'm sure it's a utopian kind of belief that I have about authoritarian leaders. That's why I added the democratic solution bar. Yeah, exactly. It's like when there's all the discussion around anti-vax and like vaccine mandates, etc. I watched Destiny debate someone, and he brought up a really good point in that regard. Like, we're all like, I was cheering for the vaccine as, you know, like a scientifically backed solution, etc., etc. But he brought up a really good point. What if Trump was in power and he made an ivermectin mandate or a hydroxychloroquine mandate? Like, that accepting that the government has those powers can very, very, very easily go the wrong way. And it's the same with authoritarianism. Like, most authoritarian governments, they are not going to do good things. Anyways, election analysis. Let's go. There are a lot of misconceptions about what's happened in the elections. Click my link. Oh yeah, I saw this one. It is not good that Macron won. This is just rage bait. His actual take is underneath, and I saw it earlier today. The lesser of two evils is good, actually, is a defeatist mindset that makes you easy to manipulate. It isn't good. It is also evil. Judge things according to your own standards. Have a little self-respect. I agree. This is not a bad take. We voted for the lesser of two evils. That's not a victory. That's avoiding defeat. Now the French left needs to unite, and that's one of the things I'll talk about. Actually, there's a plan. There's a plan being raised that might perhaps revive like a united French left. We will see if it actually happens or not. I think it's a bad take. Why so? Can you do the demographics breakdown? I've seen so many like contradictory poll memes. Yes, that's what I was planning on doing. It's a bad take. What other opinion do you have? With a varied population, you'll never like a candidate 100%. No, I mean, from the perspective of someone who dislikes Macron, it's okay to say that you're happy he won, and also say that now you need to fight him. Like, I feel like maybe I'm like projecting my own thoughts onto what Shaun is saying. This is a dumb take. Like, it is good that Macron won. It is good that Macron won. The alternative is bad. Is Macron more of a center-left person? No, he's center-right. He's, for the French Overton window, he's center-right. I dislike Macron, but I would say he's way better for the French people. Yeah, exactly. Like, it is good that Macron won. I disagree with this take. But I agree with this take. If you voted for Macron to block Le Pen, which is what a lot of people who voted for Macron did, then you need to acknowledge that you're going to have to continue fighting Macron for the next 5 years. You're going to have to go vote in the legislatives for the parties that actually represent your ideas, and so on and so forth. Now, for the people who actually do support Macron genuinely, then yeah, then this obviously doesn't apply to them. I'm kind of amazed how much Le Pen got, though. Yes, the far right has been doing better and better and better, and we will get right into that. It was way worse than the AfD situation in Germany. So the thing is, there's really a progression in France. In 2002, the first time that the far right got to the runoffs, they got, what was it, 17.8%. Then in 2017, the second time they got into the runoffs, they got 33%, and now they got 42%. There is a trend here, and it's a scary trend. I think sometimes you have to make hard decisions where whatever you do, something bad happens. By definition, choosing lesser of two evils and fighting hard for lesser of two evils, I think is smart. Absolutely. And I don't think that's what Shaun is arguing against. That's why I'm saying, like, his take was actually underneath, and that's what I agree with. In my country, even the leftist parties are right-wing, so wait, where do you live? It's a winner's philosophy. We don't like this guy IRL, but he's all we had. No, that was calculated. Elections are not about being favored, but being slightly better than your opponent. It's more complicated than that. You did say that lesser of two evils is a defeatist bad mindset. No, he said the lesser of two evils is good, actually. That's what he said. Like, if you're someone who disagrees with Macron, and who is now saying Macron is good, then that's a bit weird. Like, what changed? If you disagree with Macron, you still disagree with him. It's just that you disagreed even more with Marine Le Pen. Either you have Kemalist parties, or you have fundamentalist parties, or right-wing minority parties. Yeah, and in Turkey, the whole situation is fucked, right? Erdogan is not a very good host of democracy, from what I can tell. I can see your point, but I do not have a positive view of Shaun. Maybe Myrene was not charitable enough, and maybe I'm being too charitable, I don't know. I mean, I'm pro Erdogan, so I'm okay with the situation, but I get why others find it annoying. Well, then the problem again is like you're happy with an authoritarian because he's your authoritarian, but like that's not what democracy is about. Does France have the ranked choice? No, France does not have ranked choice. I'm open about it though, and I hope for diversity in our parliament, but the opposition is trying really hard to not win. Yeah, that's a bit of what I feel like is happening in France as well. The like left opposition is doing their damnedest, their best not to win. Because I was just thinking about it, and ranked choice for me would be like not about who I want best, but who I wouldn't want at all. I don't know if it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Basically, okay, it's okay. I'll talk about what I want to talk about. The territories you see here are the overseas French territories. They have been immensely pro-Le Pen in the runoffs. And Corsica was always pro-Le Pen, but might seem surprising. Those territories are ethnically extremely diverse. They don't seem to correspond to the stereotype of the racist voter. In addition, what's very interesting about them is in the first round, most of those territories were actually pro-Mélenchon, the leftist candidate. So they switched from leftist to far right. What the interpretation we can make of those votes is that those votes are quite simply votes of desperation for any candidate that will make them feel heard. There is this reality in French politics that French politics are extremely centered on the metropolitan territory. Even in the metropolitan territory, they're centered around Paris. Everything revolves around Paris in France. And the farther you are from Paris, the less you matter when it comes to politics, the less you matter when it comes to budgets, the less you feel as though your voice is heard. So it is actually the populist candidates that make them feel as though their voice is heard. In fact, when we read and analyzed Marine Le Pen's program, we saw that she promised the overseas territories that they would have their own ministry, a ministry of overseas territories, which would give them a representative, a seat at the Council of Ministers in the capital. But basically, why am I pointing this out? Because this is already a big part of Le Pen's support that wasn't actually an endorsement of her xenophobia or even necessarily an endorsement of her populism per se. It was leftist basically flipping to the second best populist they could find. They were anti-Macron, yes, but they were especially anti the French technocracy. And yeah, Le Pen promised them that their voice would be heard, but they were not fundamentally far right. Those are people who voted for her because of the like socialist populist memes that she integrated in her program, and especially because she pandered to them. Then when it comes to France itself, let me see. Oh, perfect. Okay, perfect. We got it. We got the map with the first and second, the first round and the runoff. Excellent. This is what I needed. So this gives us a perspective in general of, like I said, overseas territories are extremely leftist. They only flip to Le Pen in the runoffs. They are, like you said, anti-Macron. When it comes to the mainland territory, most of those votes transfer to Macron. The left still strongly supports Macron. Obviously, as a lesser of two evils calculation. A French friend from Occitan told me that some of his overseas friends voted for Le Pen because of the endless remarks Macron had against African nations and the colonies, which I don't understand because Le Pen is openly racist, so how does that help? She managed to fix her image. They just bought the propaganda around her. I'm sad to say. I'm sad to say they just bought into her propaganda. She's managed to reform her image. Like I said, she promised to create a Ministry of Overseas Territories. So she's directly pandering to the fact that they aren't heard in French politics by promising to give them a voice. And as for the racism, there is this mini interview. Let's see if I can find it again. Pandering, it seems like a good thing, no? I don't think it's a bad idea, no. I think Macron needs to do something to give them more representation. Absolutely. But it's still pandering. I use words like pandering, but from a morally neutral perspective. Let's see if I can find that exact video. Oh no, I had it on my Twitter feed. Oh, there it is.
Élu, nous vous écoutons. Sondage.
So this is in one of those overseas territories, interviewing someone.
Bientôt les élections présidentielles. Selon vous, que faut-il demander pour la Martinique au président qui sera élu?
According to you, what should we ask for Martinique's sake from the president who will be elected?
J'aurais aimé que le gouvernement, qu'il n'y ait plus de PD, de lesbiennes, parce que
I would have liked if the government didn't have more F slurs or lesbians.
il n'y a que ça, des PD, des lesbiennes. On ne peut pas être dirigé.
That's all we have. F slurs and lesbians. We cannot be led by that.
Par ce genre d'individus.
By those kinds of people.
J'aurais bien aimé que Macron ne repasse pas.
Okay, I would have liked Macron not to pass again.
Hein, parce que c'est un fils de pute.
And I know he's not going to pass again because he's a son of a bitch. So, like, why am I showing you this? Because there is, sadly, when it comes to far-right populism, there is this thing. Everyone knows the saying. First they came for the Jews, and you didn't say anything. Then they came for the homosexuals, and you didn't say anything, etc., etc. When it comes to far-right populism, people will latch onto you hating the people they hate as well. So in this case, this guy's homophobic. So he doesn't care that he's a person of color and that he will also be hated by a lot of the politicians in Marine Le Pen's party. No, what he cares about is that they hate homosexuals just as much as he does. I've seen that in France as well. I've seen Polish people protest for Le Pen. It was like 20 years ago, but I saw Polish people protest for Le Pen because they hated Arabs, not realizing that Le Pen hated them just as much as North Africans. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter to them. So definitely there's going to be people who are going to vote for Le Pen, especially since she's been fixing her image. She's been doing photo ops with people of color. She's avoided talking about race at all. In fact, the language that she's adopted ever since 2017 is the language of Republican colorblindness. And that is how she dog whistles now. And those kinds of dog whistles are extremely powerful in French political culture because they will appeal both to the actual racists, but they will also appeal to moderates who feel attacked by US style race theory. There are some far right LGBT+, this guy should know. Dude, I was just reading articles because J.K. Rowling. Okay, this has nothing to do with the French election. J.K. Rowling retweeted this article from a gay activist who was basically being a TERF. He was basically being like a transphobic, and man, reading it's such a trip. Like those people feel like their place is threatened in the LGBTQ movement because now there's this other class of people who are like more oppressed. It's such a weird mindset. I don't know. Anyways, back to the French election. Urban metropolitan areas have always been dominated by moderate left in general, or leftism in general. What we see here is the parts that were actually leftist Like, can we zoom into this? Oh, yeah, this is not a very useful zoom. Those parts around Paris here are mostly the very popular, very poor suburbs of Paris. I don't quite know what Mélenchon's voters represent in like the south of France. Probably like more like rural poverty. It's basically extreme nationalism, right? Yeah. But it was interesting to see, as much as there's a very real fear in French politics of like a Bernie or bust movement of Mélenchon voters not wanting to vote for Macron. It's not what happened. The red districts here very clearly flipped yellow, apart from the overseas, but I already addressed that. So where does the rest of her support come from? It comes in the north from old industrial areas that have been destroyed by France's transition towards a service economy. People who have been left behind, who feel left behind by the globalization, by the development of the country into a service economy, by the centralization in Paris as well. Paris on a socioeconomic level, by being so central, has actually a deleterious effect on regions surrounding it. Ayo, still pretty wild that Listilo got 40%. Yeah, that's what we're analyzing right now and trying to explain. So boomers, actually boomers were some of the most supportive demographic of Macron. But I'll get into that after the geography lesson. This diagonal that traverses France is colloquially called the diagonal of emptiness. It is extremely rural, very low population density, and as such, also left behind by the economic development of France. Here you see Macron did gain a lot of votes, but once again, those are more urbanized areas. You can really see here in like the Picardie area, etc. Those are drive-through areas. Some of the areas that voted Le Pen here in the south of France are basically her like hunting grounds where she's always had extremely strong support. Low population, low IQ, no. Look, the reality is those people don't just feel like they've been left behind by France. They have been left behind by France. And like I listened to Macron's acceptance speech. He said that he must now be the president of all French people, that he must acknowledge the will of the people who abstain, the will of the people who voted for him just to block Le Pen, and the will of the people who voted for Le Pen. And now I don't actually believe that he's necessarily going to do that, but those words are true. Those people are how to put it, disillusioned with French politics. That's why they're turning towards the most extreme nationalist populism that they can latch onto. Yeah, north and south of France are pretty far right, but not for the same reasons. Yeah, so the north is like old industrial grounds. Though when it comes to Calais, it's also very linked to immigration. Calais is where the big refugee camps are that connect to Great Britain, and that has had an extremely radicalizing effect on the population in the northern regions. Tell them to learn to code. Yeah, right. In the south, I would say it's also linked to a certain image of immigration. Marseille is the second biggest city in France, and having relatively high rates of criminality, but also being like a point of entry for immigrants across the Mediterranean, has had a radicalizing effect on the French population as well. Typically, like people in Marseille, French people in Marseille will. All right, see you, Paula. Have a good sleep. People in Marseille will have a very, very, will have strong concerns about insecurity, for example. But overall, the most important thing that explains Marine Le Pen's success is that she pivoted her entire campaign to laser focus on purchasing power. And that is outright the greatest concern that French people had, who aren't well off, basically. By laser focusing on that, she managed to capture, I think, a lot of votes from the disillusioned yellow vest type voters. She managed to mobilize a lot of people who feel like the EU technocracy only profits the rich, to the 1%ers and the metropolitan people, etc. And Macron himself doesn't come off good when it comes to purchasing power, because he basically triggered the Yellow Vest movement in the first place by proposing an increase on gas taxes for ecological reasons. Anyways, let's get into the demographics. Oh shit, women were more likely to vote Marine Le Pen. That's interesting. Is it the is it the feminist vote? All right, so there has been a wrong infographic that has been making the rounds, stating that young people from 18 to like 34 have overwhelmingly voted for Marine Le Pen. That is not the case. There is only one poll out there stating that. Every single other poll puts young people as pro-Macron. Now, the vote is still really close, especially when it comes to 25 to 49, actually. Young people did vote Macron, to like almost 60%. And yes, older people... Look, older people have the memory. Older people remember Le Pen's father. Older people remember the shock of 2002, the first time that the far right got the runoffs. The older people understand the importance. If they're old enough, they actually lived through the Second World War. So the older people definitely understand what they're voting for here and how important it is. Looks like everyone voted for Macron. Pretty much yes. But it's interesting to see where it was the closest. 25 to 49 years old. And even more interesting to see what are the Yo, thanks for the like, Kyle. How are you doing? Holy shit, Kyle Braxton! Well, we're back. We're streaming on Facebook again. We got Kyle watching. My first instinct is it's a right-wing meme, maybe. So, catégorie aisée is upper class. Hey man, good to see you. Good to see you too, man. Sorry for not streaming for on Facebook for so long. Had some issues with multi-streaming. So, rich people, upper class people, 65% support for Macron. Not surprising. Macron has been a really good candidate, a really good president when it comes to upper class people. It is the popular categories of the socio-professional categories who favored Marine Le Pen, which is not surprising either. She ran on an extremely populist national socialist platform. And though everyone focuses on her nationalism, I think really it's the socialism of her platform that managed to get her so many new voters. People who are tired of Macron's austerity, Macron's, well, though to be fair, Macron was anything but austerity when it came to the COVID crisis. But still, austerity is what he wants to put in place outside of a time of crisis. And inactives supported Macron. Nope. Of the people who voted in the first round for different candidates, well, this is not surprising. Fabien Roussel was the Communist Party candidate. 80% of his voters voted Macron. Jean-Luc Mélenchon was the leftist candidate. 76% voted Emmanuel Macron. Anne Hidalgo's Socialist Party. She doesn't fucking matter. She got less than 2%. 86% voted Macron. Yannick Jadot, Green Party, 88.6%. Not surprising at all. Yannick Jadot is like the Green Party is generally really popular when it comes to the kind of class of people who are not going to have a problem voting for Macron. And this is where, obviously, the people who voted Macron in the first round, most of them voted Macron again. And this is where Macron's strength comes, of being like a center-right character. Valérie Pécresse, the Republican Party candidate, she endorsed him. 72% of her electorate flipped over to him. And then you got the far-right candidates, you know, no big surprise. Nicolas Dupont-Aignan, Marine Le Pen, Éric Zemmour, Jean Lassalle. I mean, Jean Lassalle is a weird character, and as you can see, it's actually split. But anyways, no surprises there. If anything, like, could be, I'm a bit shocked that 24% of Jean-Luc Mélenchon's voters flipped to Marine Le Pen, but I expect that most of those are from the overseas territories. I considering the analysis we did on that, I really think it's those people. I don't think it's necessarily a racist vote, or like a weird burn your bust vote. I think it's a lot of it is the overseas people who just don't see Macron as representing them. Political proximity, so France Insoumise is Mélenchon's party, Socialist Party, the Green Party, Ensemble Citoyen, the Republicans. I mean, this is kind of the same. All right, and wait, how is this different from the earlier one? Sociologie du vote au second tour en pourcentage de vote exprimé. Oh, this was in 2017. Okay, so we can compare 2022 to 2017. What changed between the two? And I think what changed is just Macron is way less popular. He's just way less popular on all metrics. It's cool that two parties have an exclamation point. Really drives home the point. Yes, it's very important. That's how you know that they're serious about this as well. I don't vote for parties that don't have proper punctuation in their title. It's cringe. Anyways, the most important takeaway, because you're gonna see that chart a lot on like Twitter or whatever about with the age demographics, young people still support Macron. I can't wait for the party with a question mark in the name. That's GigaChat energy. How long until they're like anime titles with 5 exclamation marks? Yeah, I'm gonna create a party that's gonna be called like, I turned into a presidential candidate, but you won't believe what's happened. Or like, I'm a presidential candidate in another world and a slime. That's gonna be the name of my party. All right, do we have anything else to... young people live in cities. Is it wrong to say cities went to Macron? No, absolutely. Cities did go to Macron. Very strongly. Now, that being said, there are a lot of young people who don't live in the cities. In fact, I would say that a lot of what happens with the demographics is that you only move into the city once you have a job there, once you have the means to live there. But yeah, I don't know. France has a problem when it comes to cities. France has I talked about it earlier when we were looking at the map. France has a problem of centralization. I am a presidential candidate, but my old class president and also my bully is my opponent. Yeah. God, I would actually read that manga. That's, you know what, the worst part of this all is I would actually read that manga. Yeah. So, like, honestly, once the polls got to, like, 56, 57% in favor of Macron, I was no longer worried about Le Pen winning. What I'm worried about now is the next election. 2027, dude. Because the trend is... I'm too lazy to, like, find the sources again, so I'll just go into, like, my own tweets. Oh, yeah, by the way. Just what we needed. US nutjobs calling for a violent insurrection in France. We got it. We got an Arizona representative, just on a state level, it's not on a federal level, saying that Macron stole the election. You guys know how to party like it's 1776. Amazing. Oh yeah, this is a banger meme, by the way. With Macron, you can get the entire fucking political compass. I am Maoist. A good program is a program that works. It's not the citizen who will pay, but the multinationals. Those are all real quotes from Macron. Neoliberalism and financial capitalism is coming to an end. I am a yellow vest. Make our planet great again. We are the real populists. Something doesn't work anymore in this capitalism that increasingly benefits the few. My advice to young people, go read Karl Marx. Yes, I'm a socialist. That's for the part. Colonization is a crime against humanity. Merkel saved our common dignity by welcoming refugees. Liberalism is a leftist value. White privilege is a fact. You see the rise of populism like leprosy in Europe. Gauls are resistant to change. There is no French culture. Our values recognize the free, rational individual as being above everything. I'm not going to ban Uber and the VFH. That would be sending those people back to selling drugs. That Russian money is doing its job, yeah. What you should be worrying about is the status of your citizenship prior to 2027. True. Motherfucker worrying 5 years into the future, sheesh. Okay, I got distracted by this, but in 2017, no, okay, in 2002, Le Pen got 17.8%. It was her father. In 2017, 33.9%. And now in 2022, almost 42%. If this trend continues, 2027 is going to be like 48, 49%. Possibly more. That's why I'm scared. Lol, Uber drivers are ex-drug dealers. They should do both at the same time. Unironically, I've met a lot of delivery drug dealers who absolutely are like delivery drivers and drug dealers at the same time. So they're just like driving around the city and carrying the weed in their bag and also like someone's food. But no, most of them are just full-time drug dealers. Shouldn't she have referenced the French Revolution, not the American one? Implying she knows anything about history outside of the US. If there is no French culture, why is Emily in Paris a thing? Oh god, let's not talk about that. Yeah, like I said here, there is a trend here. That is why people are worried in France. The left is still in shambles, and people are getting sick of voting for the lesser evil. They are. Like, we can lament that as much as we want. We can say that it's wrong. You should always vote for the lesser evil. And I believe that. You should vote for the lesser evil. It's literally less evil than the other one. But how long can you expect people to do that? I don't know. I don't know if the next election or the election after that is going to be the breaking point. But if this continues, we will have a far-right president in France. And that's fucking scary.